You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there, welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt. Now, I guarantee you that if you're running a Shopify store right now, that you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that customer acquisition costs certainly are a major challenge for brands. I know they're only going to get worse. I know we're only at the end of Q2 right now, but it just continues to ramp up. You'd think that it would get slower-ish in the summer months, but I think a lot of people are still kind of ramping up, thinking about Q3, and then obviously with the holiday season, Q4 and BFCM and all that, it's just the competition and share of wallet just keeps growing. And then with this competition comes an increase in costs. And, it's just a brutal honesty of what's actually going on. And what's interesting about today's recording, I have a great friend I've just met. His name is William. He's the co-founder of a company. He's a CMO too, of a company called Stack Influence. And, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's a 6-time founder. He's built multiple 7-figure e-commerce businesses. So he's really eating his own dog food. He really knows what it takes to actually be an operator, an entrepreneur, kind of indirect to consumer. He's also did a tiny bit of research. He's been in Forbes, in Business Insider, and Wired. I'd love to have those links from those places. Those are fantastic. But what's really caught my eye and attention really is that he has really cracked the code on something that I believe that 92% of consumers, they really do, it's kind of stats from him, that they really do trust information versus from actual consumers than from traditional brand advertising. So I think these authentic kind of recommendations from real people actually make a difference. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, who are micro influencers? What's this influencer marketing thing all about? Are you executing very well with it yet? Are you dabbling a bit, or has it not been successful? Product seeding, is that working for you? There's so many different ideas here that I think we need to explore. And I think we've got the absolute greatest guy. So hi, William. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
How's it going, Steve? Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for, I know we punted this around a bit. We joked before recording, but it's, at the end of the day, it's just like you have a fantastic platform, and clearly a lot of major Shopify brands have put their flag in the sand and saying, no, we're using Stack Influence to kind of manage, the creators and these UGC people that are actually building and really helping build the business. And once again, reduces these acquisition costs, which is kind of the key thing. So let's talk a little bit about the whole cost thing, because I think that it's definitely a perfect storm right now with Meta and Google. It just keeps climbing. I think, other things like organic reach is declining also. And so knowing all of that, I would love to understand from your perspective, like, what are you seeing like right now? And then why are people kind of choosing to come to Stack Influence?
Absolutely. Great questions. So it's a very exciting time to be, first off, an e-commerce seller, but also in the influencer marketing world. And all the points that you just brought up regarding how advertising is incrementally becoming harder and harder as more e-commerce sellers enter into the ecosystem is absolutely the fact. And so what's happening in the space is e-commerce sellers are taking budgets away from the traditional marketing arms and pushing them towards these micro-influencer spaces. I mean, I think Unilever just came out with a stat that they're announcing they're taking away 50% of their ad budget from traditional advertising like Meta and Google and pushing it towards influencer marketing. So exciting time to be, again, in the space and helping brands really tap into and scale up these influencer tactics. I'll give you a quick high-level overview for those of you listening who obviously probably have heard of influencers, but haven't really dove in deep into the different types, et cetera, and strategies. Most people, when they think about influencer marketing, they think of celebrity influencers, right? Like people with millions of followers, the Kardashians, right? And that's really how influencer marketing kind of got its first footing, because people, very simple math, right? You give someone a product who has huge following base, they promote it to their audience, you make a bunch of sales. Now, what's evolved over the past few years is that those larger influencers have become less trustworthy. And trust is why also ads are becoming harder, is that we're bombarded by advertisements on every single platform right now, whether you're on social media, whether you're on WhatsApp, just announced they're running ads when they said they weren't, on TV, right? And so you kind of zone out. And that happened with these larger influencer creators, and people also just realizing that they're getting paid crazy, enormous sums of money to do promotion. So it's less trustworthy and authentic, right? If you know someone's kind of biased by a massive payment, you might not really trust what their recommendation for a product is, and they might not really care about the product. They'll just promote what they're getting paid for. So what has happened is that a lot of brands have now moved towards a smaller influencer space. And when I say smaller influencer, the industry calls them nano or micro influencers. So think people with less than 100,000 followers, and even some people with only a few hundred or a few thousand followers. And some people listening to that would say, how is someone with 3,000 followers ever going to be an effective promoter for me, right? They have such a small reach. But the reality is that because of that tight-knit, smaller reach or follower base, those followers are much more engaged and much more they trust that person at a much higher capacity. And trust and engagement levels correlate with sales. Now, you may think, okay, well, there's also a limited amount of people you can reach with a smaller person. And the kind of combat to that and the reality to that is that social media has dramatically changed over the past few years to where content is now more important than follower base. You can have a brand new social profile, and if you post to TikTok or do Instagram Reels, and that content gets a good amount of engagement, the social platforms are going to now show that content beyond your follower base. And you can get viral posts, billions of views with a very, very small amount of follower base. So the social platforms have really now democratized kind of the creator world and enabled really anyone with a social profile to become a content creator or an influencer. And now that's not to say that every single person is going to go viral, right?
True. Yeah.
So you really need to, the name of the game is kind of diversifying risk and scaling things up. And what brands have realized is, okay, I could pay a huge amount of money towards Meta or Google, or I could pay a celebrity influencer tens of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars to do a promotion. But what you'll get a better bang for your buck is, what if you just gave away products to, let's say, 100 different people? You didn't pay them. You traded a product in exchange for a post, and maybe half of them didn't really convert super well. But as long as a majority portion of them do well, right, and maybe some of them go extremely viral, you're going to get an absolute amazing ROI from those types of promotions. And that's really what we set out to build with Stack Influence, was a way to help brands really scale up these small creator collaborations, and then also help them automate the management of them. Because if you're dealing with 2 or 3 larger people, it's not too difficult, right? Like, you're negotiating big fees, etc. But if you're dealing with hundreds, or some brands on our platform do thousands of collaborations a month, it's quite a bit of bandwidth. And even for teams like Unilever, who have 30 people on their influencer marketing team, it's quite impossible to even manage that amount of creators. And so that's where Stack Influence comes into play. And we can dive into strategies to do this on your own, how we got there, but that's the sum of it in some capacity.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because now it's much more clear. Obviously, I knew the benefits of it and why, with the whole micro and nano influencer kind of concept and stuff like that. And I think I would add to it, I think it's that trust level, or that kind of authentic connection that a lot of these micro or nano influencers have with their followers, even if they are, under 10,000-ish, or certainly under 100. But knowing that you always follow them, you're always interested in what they're up to, where they're traveling, what they're doing, what they're using. And it's so interesting. And they go, oh, check this out. And sometimes it's the angle as to how they create this relationship with their followers and stuff, is that sometimes they don't really push it hard. They're more like, hey, I found this really cool thing, or hey, they sent this to me and I tried it, and you know what? I like it. And I think that sort of advertising is so interesting today, because people are like, oh, like it's not like, like a other than getting a free product or whatever, but maybe there could be an affiliate link. But at the end of the day, it's just people just feel like, okay, wow, I trust them. They've given, it's like, Gary Vaynerchuk has the old book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. Like, it's like give, 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 then ask. And I think that's what's happening with really good nano micro influencers. They tend to share a lot of what's going on, just complimentary for free, and just maybe even without affiliate links, without anything, just building their awareness. And then all of a sudden, there's this great product that they do want to recommend, and they get paid for it based on, if it's a sales model, however the revenue is going to be flowing, and people tend to buy it. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. And honestly, to add to that, it's when someone's doing something initially for a free product, obviously you want to pay people, and you just mentioned a few things with like affiliate commissions, how they perform, etc. But when an upfront incentive is actually simply a product, no one's going to do something that they don't actually care about, right? And so you're going to be promoting something that I like to call kind of this new age influencers of these smaller creators, passion promoters, right? Like, you're going to promote something that you're actually passionate about. If you're into yoga, right, you might only promote health and wellness products and athletic and fitness gear, right? But you might not promote an electronic product, and that might not be a great fit for your kind of following base. And so it becomes very niche, and it also becomes like a real customer testimonial. And at the end of the day, like, the most effective form of marketing in the history of the world is word of mouth marketing. And basically, these smaller creators are, in essence, word of mouth marketing at scale. So it's become an amazing tactic just on the promotion side. And we can dive into these topics a bit deeper, but the content that's also produced by these people, if you can get rights as a brand to that, utilize that content across other marketing channels and even advertising channels, there's a million different stats out there that have shown they increase your ad conversions, they decrease your ad costs. They can be utilized on a website that will increase website conversions as kind of this social proof to show, hey, real people are actually utilizing this product. And it's not, obviously you need some professional photography and make your brand look really polished, but you also want these real kind of consumers actually showing off how your product works, what are the benefits, because that's, at the end of the day, what human beings relate to is we relate to other people like us, right? And even with AI coming into the game, like, we're going to see a lot of things also shift, but I feel like most people are, the authentic type of testimonial is almost only going to become more powerful because, again, we're going to be thirsty for that real kind of testimonial from a true consumer, as opposed to something that's perfectly curated or even fake with AI.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point about just UGC, just in general, just as a kind of strategic growth lever, like not necessarily just on social. It can be anywhere through like email campaigns and retargeting. I mean, there's so many things that I think UGC. One question I have around that, and then we'll dig into the platform, the Stack Influence platform, because there are two main sides for like the brand to sign up, like the Shopify merchant to sign up, and there's also the creators can sign up. And I think it's this good union together. I'll dig into that in a minute. But one thing about this whole, this UGC, how is rights management managed through this, through the platform, or overall, what's your thought around this, where you start building a relationship with some creators, and if it's just in exchange for product, or if it turns out to be an affiliate link and they're getting paid based on sales performance, whatever the revenue model is, if they produce something that's quite powerful and it does well, who owns the rights to the content that they produced? And then, like, is it legal that now the merchant owns it and then they can repurpose it through other ways? Because it's clearly, if it's working on one platform, maybe it's worth a test on others.
100%. So through the Stack Influence platform, we actually deal with all the legal logistics to get every single creator to give up non-exclusive rights to use the content. Obviously, the influencer can utilize it themselves, but the brand actually has lifetime rights to repurpose it across any single channel that they wish, whether it's social media, online ad platforms, marketing, email, website, you name it. They have rights to do that. And we feel it's a very important aspect to an influencer campaign. And if you're doing this yourself, you should absolutely ahead of time try to negotiate those rights with influencers, because that content itself may provide an amazing ROI just by repurposing it. Like, take the promotion aside, like, that content is so valuable. UGC just performs so much better than, honestly, a lot of even perfectly curated professional content now these days.
Yeah.
So it's a really important aspect to think about when you are diving into the influencer world.
Yeah. So let's talk about the platform itself, because like I said, when you go to the homepage of stackinfluence.com, there's like a brand sign up and there's the creator sign up. Can you talk a little bit about why your platform is quite unique, where, you're allowing for both parties to show up? And then like, I'm just curious on what the day to day would look like for each of those. Like, what was the merchant's day to day or week to week look like? And then all these creators, gosh, I don't know how many you have, over 11 million or more creators that are on your platform also. And so it seems like they can be sliced and diced, based on their reach and the market that they serve and all that kind of stuff, and past performance metrics. Talk a bit about the platform for us today.
Absolutely. So the Stack Influence platform is very unique in the industry. And what is unique about it is that we set out to build a two-sided marketplace, right? As opposed to a pure SaaS product. Now, when I was an e-commerce seller, we utilize a huge amount of influencer marketing, and really the only tools, and it's still the case today, the majority of influencer tools out there basically just have a database of influencers, which in simple terms means they have contact information for them. And then the solution that they're providing is tools to outreach to those people and kind of manage some payments and negotiations, kind of like a CRM, you could say. Now, that can work really well when you're working with a handful of people, especially larger creators. But when you're trying to deal with these smaller creators at scale, it's not an effective solution, because basically you have to maybe outreach to 1,000 people to get one person who's actually going to be the right fit and will do something for you, right? And it still takes a huge amount of manual logistics to do it. So what we found when we were selling e-commerce products ourselves was like, if we could create a dedicated community, people who we trust, we already have vetted them, and we can kind of tap into them at any given point to try to get them to do a collaboration, it becomes such a more scalable and effective way about going about it. So that's why we built this marketplace where we actually don't just have a database of random people. We have this dedicated community of people who apply. They get pre-vetted by our system, and then they get access to kind of this shopping marketplace, in essence, to pick products that are the ideal fit for them. So as opposed to just shipping a random product to someone and we think they're the right fit, we're having the influencer actually choose the product itself. So we get these layers of intent to make sure the match is properly done. And that's kind of the magic of the system. So just starting on the influencer side, influencers apply, they go through a vigorous vetting process. Once they get approved, they get access to a curated marketplace that's going to be only catered to products we believe are the right fit for them. And then they're going to be able to pick products that they actually like. Maybe we know that they're interested in baby products, but they might not want a product that's for a 1-year-old versus a 3-year-old, and we might not have that data, right? And so that layer of intent is really effective for making that match proper. And so they're doing kind of ongoing campaigns. We don't let them do too many. We don't want to oversaturate their social profile, so we limit things. And that's kind of how they interact with the system. And then on the brand side, we try to simplify this as much as possible. A brand signs up for the system. If you go to Stack Influence, you sign up, you'll get on a call with someone just so that we can align on your growth goals, your products, make recommendations for what stage of growth you are at. And then once you kind of have a lay of the land per se, what you're simply going to do is set how many influencers you would like to achieve or collaborations you would like to achieve in a specific time frame. Maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's 12 months. And maybe it's 100 influencers, maybe it's 10,000 influencers. And then you're going to upload some information on your products. Maybe you want to promote 3 products, maybe you want to promote 30 products, right? And set goals on a per product basis. Once those goals are set into the system, the brand gets to sit back, relax, and the platform does all of the heavy lifting. We get influencers to actually buy products, so shipping logistics are streamlined. We make sure that influencers actually opt in and follow specific campaign guidelines that the brand will also have a hand in kind of curating. We make sure that they actually post on time and also post in general, ensure that they don't just steal a product. And then we also do the analysis and kind of provide metrics to a brand to see what were the social results from this, which were your best influencer promotions, how sales were generated from these types of collaborations, and then also provide you with a portal to see all of the final social content. So you don't have to kind of search for things, download all those final UGC assets. We get you the rights to everything. So just an all-encompassing way to really streamline this kind of micro nano collaborations while doing it in the hundreds and thousands without actually having to really lift a finger to accomplish these types of things.
Yeah, this is amazing. I did, as a good host, I did a little bit of research kind of before we were recording today, and I said, you know what, there's others in the, direct kind of influencer platformy space. There's some notable, and there's even a unicorn competitor in this space kind of doing its thing. But one thing I noticed is that you do have, and I want you to talk about this, about some of these kind of key differentiators I think you have. And I think what I see that kind of sets Stack Influence apart based on all the other competitors in the space really is their compensation models are quite interesting. I mean, in a couple different fold. One, I've noticed that there's like the product only compensation model, meaning I guess you actually, you get a product in exchange for a post, and that's the end of the conversation. And then we see how that goes, and then you kind of continue on with that relationship if it's fruitful. But there's also and then I think there's also this pay per post performance structure also. So I want to talk about the different types of payment options and how you can interact with your influencers. And then I guess part two of that question is that a lot of the competitors I find are charging a monthly subscription fee or a per content fee, where I think Stack is kind of interesting, where they only charge, essentially after there is some kind of a successful transaction that's happening.
Absolutely. So the fundamental payment structure and what we've based our entire business off is a pure product seeding model, meaning that a brand just has to give away a free product in exchange for a promotion, right? And how we charge as the platform, there's no monthly fees. You simply, and you kind of hit the nail on the head with this, we simply charge you a flat small fee, and it'll range from $20 to $40, depending on kind of what your objectives are and your scales per successful post. And that's a very important thing, because a lot of other platforms will charge you huge amounts of sums, and you have no guarantee that you're going to get anything in return. And so how we go about doing that basically kind of guaranteed, you could say, influencer insurance model is what we do is we actually get influencers to become real consumers. And I briefly mentioned this before, but what happens is an influencer, in order to receive a product from a brand, they don't just simply ship it to them. What we do is we get the influencer to actually go buy that product from, let's say, their Shopify store. And then only once they complete a successful social post will the brand just have to give that influencer back their money for their expenses. So if they bought something for $15, they get that $15 back. So now they got the product for free. And then they, on top of that, they just pay us a flat fee. So now the brand is never paying for something that they don't actually receive. And it's a really unique solution in the market, because basically, if you talk to anyone else who's doing product seeding, what they're going to tell you is, yeah, we'll send out 100 products to 100 different people for you. But what you're going to get in return is maybe 50 final social posts. And you're going to be losing 100 pieces of actual product, right? And in our system, if 100 people buy a product and let's say only 50 do complete posts, you just made 50 extra free sales because you never had to reimburse those people. So you just made money. You came out on top. And then also you only have to actually pay anything for the people who successfully create something. And so it's a pay-as-you-go model. It's a guaranteed model. And we found it was just the best way to go about it. And then internally, we actually reward influencers kind of out of the fees that brands charge us, or we charge them. We simply will pay influencers on top for certain performance metrics. So if they produce good content, if they kind of get good promotional values, we reward them incrementally. So on the influencer side, they're not just only simply getting product, even though that's their initial incentive. We want to reward them in the long term based off of kind of the value that they are providing.
Right. Now, what happens in Amazon or other marketplaces? Because I always, when I was at Shopify, one of the strategies that we always talked about, this multi-channel strategy, was maybe not put your full product catalog on Amazon, but we can't ignore the fact that probably close to half of all e-commerce transactions, 40 for sure, but I would call it probably half of all e-commerce transactions online are done on Amazon. And so knowing that they have incredible organic reach, whatever product you're looking for, the Amazon listing is probably coming up first. Is there a strategy from an influencer to be able to want to send traffic over to Amazon? And is there a spillover or a halo effect of like, well, do they actually buy it on Amazon, or do all of a sudden these influencers let people know that it's available on Amazon and they go there, but then they say, I want to learn more about it. And then do they end up going direct to the brand on their Shopify store? And then it's such an interesting concept about the power of what Amazon has, but I'm curious about the influencer side of promoting these marketplaces.
100%, and great question. So marketplaces are a really interesting use case for influencer marketing. And as you mentioned, and it's a crazy stat, but that 50% of every single e-commerce sale in the US is going through Amazon itself, right?
It's nuts.
So obviously creating a robust Shopify and D2C store, extremely valuable. And that's even also very valuable for when you're listing on Amazon. Consumers want to see you have a presence outside of the marketplace, right? Not just be Amazon focused, but to kind of take advantage of that 50% consumer base. And nowadays you want to have some sort of presence on Amazon. Now, the difficulty with Amazon, and this is the same thing with any e-commerce marketplace, is at the end of the day, it's a search engine. And about similar to kind of Google, 75% of people, when you search for something on Amazon, you don't go past the first page. And for any given search term, there might be thousands of pages, right? And so people think, okay, great, I'll just create a listing and I'll start taking advantage of that 50% of consumers on Amazon. It's
right.
like, that's not the case. Maybe you're on page 9,933, right? And it's like, you're not making any sales once you're there. And I think the stat is like 3,000 new sellers join Amazon every single day. So competition is crazy fierce. And so the question is, how do you position yourself within the marketplace to actually gain visibility? In the same way that when you have a Shopify store, how do you kind of rank within Google, right? How do you show up on search engines? And in the Shopify and website world, right, it's like optimizing for content, for SEO, et cetera, backlinks. But on Amazon, the main important metrics that they want to see is, what are your conversion rates on your listing? How many sales do you have? Do people add your product to your cart? Do they leave reviews, et cetera, et cetera? And there's something on Amazon that they call the cold start problem. So when you first list on Amazon, Amazon faces this dilemma, which is that they're not going to put you on the first page right away, but because it's a major risk, I think there's like 43 listings on the first page. Like if they put you there and your product really wasn't high converting, Amazon's losing money, right? So it's a big risk for them to start pushing you to the top. But at the same time, it's also kind of a risk to not at all place you, because what if your product is the best of the bunch and converts extremely well? Now, they could be making a lot more money, right, on your product. So it's this big dilemma. And the only way Amazon can really solve it is to incrementally collect data based off of how your listing converts within the marketplace. So organically, what they will do is incrementally place you for kind of some high volume keywords, right? They might put you on the first page for one keyword for 30 minutes and then
just
take
to
you
see
away.
What happens. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but what you can actually do to really solve that problem for them is if you start generating external traffic. And what I mean by that is you run an influencer marketing campaign and drive that influencer to promote the product through Amazon. What you're now doing is giving Amazon the data it needs to actually determine where to place you within the marketplace. And it's an amazing turnkey system that works really, really well if you do it effectively. Now, not all external traffic is created equal. If you run let's say a Facebook campaign and your conversion rates are really, really low, that actually could hurt your listing. You're giving Amazon actually bad data that says that this product doesn't deserve to be there. So you want to invest in channels that are very trusted and high converting. And that's why a lot of brands actually utilize influencers for Amazon growth, because the conversion rates are really high. And so what you can then do is you get this kind of extra ROI where you're not only making sales, you're not only getting content from influencers, you're not only getting kind of and you mentioned this, the halo effects of the brand, the social promotions in general and the brand awareness. But if you start driving these high converting sales and these metrics that Amazon loves, you're going to start ranking higher within the marketplace. And then all of a sudden, if your product now performs at those higher rates, those sales aren't going to stop. You're going to kind of be what we call be sticky and stay there. And you're going to make Amazon a major actual channel for your e-commerce business. And so that's kind of the formula that a lot of brands, especially on our platform, are now utilizing influencer campaigns for, is not only to, again, create this kind of awareness and UGC content and assets for their Shopify stores, but also to grow on online marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart, Target, Sephora.
So I want to bring up another topic around Amazon, because I think it's really good timing right now. When you think about Prime Days, they've decided to run 4 days now. Like I think it's July 8th to 11th, and Prime Days is massive. And knowing that, has there been any thought with both your platform and the brands and the influencers? What are people thinking about right now? Because obviously this episode is being released before Prime Days. What are we recommending? Is it exactly status quo? Is it same as normal? Because I think what's happening because of Prime Days advertising is the fact that the share of wallet gets a little bit larger, because it's a much more hyped up, for Prime members only. I'm getting emails in my inbox about it. Like, I know it's there and they really do want to promote it, and they've extended it now to 4 full days. What's the mindset now, or the execution now, to really maximize this time period?
Great question. And you're spot on with that. Prime Days is a very important day for people actually running campaigns on our platform. And basically based off of all the metrics I just kind of explained. So we're seeing a huge uptake in influencer campaigns, right? Usually a month to 2 months prior to the Prime Days, prior to July, prior to the November Prime Days. And it really comes back to that cycle, is if you can show Amazon a lot of good growth and get your basically listings to an optimum position prior to having all of these new eyeballs on Amazon searching, which is one of the largest days for consumers to actually go to Amazon, you're going to just hit it out of the park. And that's one kind of tactic that a lot of people sometimes miss with influencers, is that like there's two sides to it. You want to kind of have an always on strategy, especially with these smaller creators, is like consistent brand awareness. But at certain points during the year, you're going to want to concentrate things to really boost up that awareness and that growth, whether you're on Amazon, whether you're on Shopify. Maybe it's just the holiday season. Maybe your product is really seasonal and you only sell your product during the summer season. You want to kind of start driving more growth maybe in the spring to really get that optimum awareness, and on Amazon specifically, that optimum search positioning prior to having all of those consumers really on that platform and searching for that product. And that's really that formula for success. So you're completely right with the idea that people are really pushing a lot of growth prior to July Prime Day. It's one of our busiest times of the year.
Amazing. So let's talk a bit about maybe I would call it maybe more advanced tactics a bit. And I've seen this happen a lot on Instagram accounts, where it seems like an account or a brand takes over an influencer's account. And I'm not sure what the technical side about what that means about how a brand physically gets access to a full takeover for the day and does, 3 or 4 posts and does some crazy stuff. Can you talk a bit about how that works and how it might be similar or different than just kind of traditionally when the influencer's doing the work versus the brand doing the work on the influencer's own dedicated channel?
Absolutely. So this is actually something that we are investing heavily in this year and in the upcoming years. The industry term for this is called whitelisting.
Okay.
So basically what it is that after an influencer will do a promotion for you, they can give you a unique code, and you need to get this for them. Something that we're building out in our system is an automated way to actually get those codes and streamline them. But basically, once you have this code, you can put that code into your Meta ad account or your TikTok ad account. And then basically their profile becomes kind of this, you could say, portal or funnel for you to run ads through. So think of it as you have Molly, this influencer, produce this great content, right? And now instead of just taking Molly's content and running it under your brand, let's say you're Nike, running it under the Nike Instagram account to run an ad with, you're putting ad dollars behind Molly's own Instagram post and their profile, right? So you're kind of funding it.
Yeah.
And it becomes an amazing advertising tactic. It just dramatically increases conversions. And the bottom line behind it is it's just more authentic, right? It's like when a consumer comes across And Nike's a unique example because they have great brand following. But for any given brand, right? Like when you see an ad, you know it's an ad, you know it's from the brand. It's innately kind of is less trustworthy because you think that a huge amount of money is behind it. But if all of a sudden this post comes into your feed that is from Molly themselves and they're a yoga teacher and they're promoting this health and wellness product, it's more trustworthy, it's more authentic, but it's backed by kind of ad dollars that's getting it way more visibility than maybe organically it would have on its own. And so it's a really, really amazing tactic, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on TikTok. TikTok's created a lot of internal processes to streamline this system amazingly. So you kind of can combine it with affiliate marketing, choose the best affiliates who produce the best sales, and then feed those kind of whitelisted ads into your ad system. And the algorithm does the work to kind of pick which one is best. But it's something that came out a few years ago. It's not brand new, but a lot of brands are actually unaware of this tactic and have yet to implement it. And for the ones that are doing it, it's providing unbelievable results. And it's something that we're planning to and in the process of building a lot of automation into, because it takes work to kind of get those codes, pick which content is the best, feed that into your ad system, set ad budgets, right? And that's going to be a big evolution of our system, is what we call kind of content or influencer syndication. Like streamline the seeding, streamline the promotion, but now what do you do with all of that, those relationships or that content? And it's like, we want to build automations to where you can seed those kind of pieces of content, those influencer profiles into affiliate programs, into these whitelisting advertisements, maybe the content onto your social profiles or onto your website, and really create this dynamic and automated ecosystem around the influencer collaborations.
This is really cool. I just thought of another idea here that I just would love to pick your brain on, and it's about cookies and, the fact that, the cookie apocalypse, but, there's like a 7-day window, like usually right now for attribution. And I'm curious on your side, do you guys run your own kind of third-party pixel tracking tool, and are you kind of like, or have you wholly built your own? The reason I'm asking this question, because I feel that the customer journey is not really fluid from top to bottom. It's not necessarily just strictly from awareness, consideration, or discovery, let's say, and then to a purchase. Purchase is definitely the end, but then are they making a second purchase? And understanding that whole journey, what's your mindset around the current attribution systems that we have, and kind of GDPR and kind of like all these compliance things that that brands are trying to navigate around, but then we still want data and being able to action the data.
Absolutely. Well, one thing with the evolution of cookie tracking and where influencers are becoming more popular is that targeting is getting harder on ad platforms because cookies are getting more difficult to actually track, right? And that's one big advantage to just influencers in general, is that you can target this kind of very niche audience just by identifying the right creators to work with, because their follower bases are going to be pretty targeted. So it's becoming this replacement to just classical targeting mismatches, where influencers can actually provide much more targeted and better data for that initial promotion. Now, within the influencer promotion itself, tracking sales is a mixed bag, right? And there's a few reasons behind this, and there's ways to do this actually really properly, but social platforms innately hate having people leave the social platform. They want people to be stuck on Instagram or stuck on TikTok, etc. So classically, like in Instagram posts, they don't even allow clickable links, which really hurts with attribution and full funnel tracking. But now that is changing. And so like TikTok can enable actual clickable posts. Obviously, advertisements can do so. You can put trackable links in bios in certain types of content on like the Instagram platform, for example, stories. And so the key is to have good conversion tracking, actual attribution links within whatever kind of promotion that you are pushing forward, and getting the influencers to actually push it throughout multiple different channels that actually have that attribution. And once you have those in place, it becomes quite easy to actually see that full funnel. Now, as far as what you brought up with like recurring sales, et cetera, you're going to need to have kind of things in place within your almost Shopify store, for example. Amazon has some of this data of who's coming back to actually rebuy. So you have to piece a few different puzzle pieces together, but it is absolutely something that a lot of brands and companies are actually creating tools for, and something that we're also working on to really streamline that, because it's a hard thing with influencers. And if you know your metrics really, really well, you can see the incremental halo effects from everything. But some people miss that, right? It's like and this is a natural state of e-commerce in general, is like, how do you attribute kind of the sales that are coming in organically? I mean, maybe it's from social media, maybe it's from influencer promotions, maybe it's from kind of your Amazon listing really growing, right? So there's ways to figure that out, but obviously kind of the gold standard is that pure tracking attribution. So it is important to create those funnels, especially with kind of affiliate programs where you might only be giving commission based off of attributed sales that come from an influencer. Those are the tactics that you really need to implement to kind of have that full funnel tracking capabilities.
Yeah. One thing I do recommend too, and you make a really good point, is maybe adding a third-party pixel tracking platform to your Shopify store. If you think of like Triple Whale, for example, or North Beam
Exactly.
or
Yep.
Hyros, these are, platforms that really help just like fully understand the customer journey, like whatever this personally identifiable information is. I mean, every site visitor has some kind of a unique identifying pattern, sale or non-sale. I mean, there's even tools out now that can kind of unhash the unknown site visitor, like the open send and the retention and these sort of tools. And it's a whole nother conversation about
Absolutely.
how do we deal with these unknown site visitors and how do we market them? And thanks for visiting and haven't opted in yet and all that craziness. But I think that the Triple Whales and the Hyros and North Beams, certainly that's an option for sure, because then at least it'll be interesting, kind of a platform update for you in the future to think about, well, how do we interact through APIs, through some third-party pixel tracking tools? Can we leverage any of this longer tail data that may not be available from these social platforms? It's quite an interesting concept.
Absolutely. And also integrating those analysis of just unknown website visitors, as you mentioned, retention, R2B, like those things can be extremely, extremely effective to kind of figure out that funnel of data. And as you collect also influencer information, right, you can really strengthen your entire customer portfolio as well.
Wow, very cool. So I have a question about AI. It's obviously the elephant in the room. It has so many applications. I wrote about it recently. It's in my newsletter next week. It's so interesting. There's so many applications I think a lot of people, both marketers and brand founders are a little bit apprehensive about how they're using it. They're worried about brand voice. They're worried about, is it accurate data? They don't want to necessarily just start replacing employees in exchange for research. And there's so many different ways of using AI. What have you seen recently kind of in your space? Because I do see a flood of AI generated kind of social media posts and stuff, these headless YouTube channels, and there's lots of craziness going on here, right? And it just seems a little bit inauthentic. Even some of the ones that are trying to look like humans and they're moving their hands and their mouths is kind of with it's really interesting what's going on right now. We're at an inflection point, but you have firsthand experience. What's your thought around AI generated? Where are things headed? What are you kind of recommending brands to do today with their creators on your platform?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And it is a wild world that in this day and age, things are evolving quite rapidly, right? Like the content's getting better. VO, Google's video generation just came out, which actually can do pretty good voiceover content. But what we're seeing is that it's still, and you briefly mentioned this, that when brands are creating only pure ads or pure content with AI, human beings can still kind of pick up that it's fake. And basically that becomes inauthentic and untrustworthy, right? Like you'll see these ads that people do with AI and all of the comments say like, this is fake news, this is AI, what the heck is this, right?
Yeah.
And that actually is hurting your brand more than it's helping. Now, there are some ways to utilize AI that can actually be a very useful tool. And so what we're recommending brands do is like utilize AI to maybe find the best practices for guidelines for influencers, right? Like use it to analyze a huge amount of different social posts in your niche, figure out what types of hooks and types of content captions that you should be recommending influencers create, right? Sourcing through data is an extremely valuable use case for AI systems. Also just generic product photography, right? Like putting your product kind of in a different shot as opposed to maybe doing a full photo shoot. There's amazing capabilities out now that are doing really well. Sometimes it doesn't work super well for kind of complicated text on a packaging, but that also can be a great use case. But in the terms of, and I am a bit biased because I believe in the human influence, right? But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I'm already seeing when we first came out, we were like, maybe AI influencers are going to take over and there's not going to be any human influencers ever again. And what the trend we're starting to see, and I think it's only going to become honestly more of a reality, is that people again are pushing back on the AI influence in the same way that they're pushing back on kind of the celebrity influence or professional product photography. And it's almost going to make the authentic creators, almost like the blurry photos and the videos, right, even more impactful because it stands out in the mixture of us being bombarded by perfectly curated content. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But at the same time, I do recommend brands stay abreast on kind of all the changes, utilize it for certain purposes when it can become a useful tool. Maybe it's editing a video once you captured a huge amount of different authentic UGC content. There's some really cool tools coming out that can help with that, whether it's curating, again, those influencer briefs or captions, curating ad copy. So absolutely use it as a tool, but I don't think it's going to become a total replacement for the entire industry.
Yeah, no, totally with you on it. I'll put my link in the show notes too, just for those founders and marketers that are listening right now, because there really is a lot of other areas, maybe outside of the influencer space too, that people need to think about. Content creation obviously is one of them. Just actual blog posts and things like that. But I think there's merchandising opportunities out there. There's both customer service. There's like legal stuff. There's operational things of it's like through chat bots, and there's quite a bit out there. And I've written a pretty in-depth report about kind of what I'm seeing right now, like just AI applications in general for Shopify stores. So, but thanks for sharing that angle. I think it's important to understand the inauthenticness that's happening right now. as it's definitely improving, but I feel that you're right. I think the human itself is the one that's going to shine, and that's all back to our original comment about we're trying to build this authentic connection from the influencer to to the end consumer, right, through the brand, and this trust and engagement is super important. So before we kind of wrap up for today, what do you believe some of our next steps could be? Because I think, just because of the size of my show, there's thousands of people listening to this episode right now. And so knowing that, they're like, okay, where am I in my entrepreneurial journey or my business complexity or the size of my business? They're going to be all over the map. And so let's talk about like the early stage people, maybe under 1,000 orders a month. They're just kind of doing their thing. They're kind of getting product market fit. Let's talk about those stages, and then let's talk about the next stage, about like kind of firmly in the mid-market enterprise. How does your platform help? Do we start off with resources first, and then trying to think of what some of the next steps could be for those listening today?
Completely. So our platform is catered to whether you are a brand just starting out or you are multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar brand, right? We have clients like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, but also people who are just getting their feet wet. And influencers are a fantastic strategy for both, especially when you actually are launching a new product or even just starting out. I say it's actually the best tactic to start with because you're not only getting your product in the hands of people, so you're getting like feedback, almost customer kind of testimonials, but you're also getting some initial sales and initial consumer base, content about your product that can strengthen your ads when you start to pursue advertisements. So it's kind of this like full package of benefits as opposed to just, I'm going to start running Facebook ads right away without really having tested the market or produced some great content, right? So it's fantastic for them, but then also, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, that Unilever is investing half of all of their ad budget into influencers. So they realize the power of how much it can actually also scale a brand. So our platform's catered to both. To simply sign up, go to stackinfluence.com. You go in the top right-hand corner, and I mentioned this briefly before, but you're going to book a call with one of our experts. They're going to guide you through some recommendations of how many influencers do you actually need based off the stage of growth that you're in. When you're first starting out and you have no sales, you might not need that many influencers to really kind of promote. And then once you're already an established brand, you have hundreds of thousands of orders a month, right? Like you're going to probably need to get a lot more awareness to really make it see that larger impact. You know what I mean? And so we're going to help you cater what strategy is the best fit for your brand and for your products. And then You'll help set up a campaign. We have actually dedicated campaign managers who will set everything up for you, walk you through how the whole system works, hold your hand as everything progresses, and you'll be able to kind of monitor it all as it's going. So yeah, check us out at stackinfluence.com. Feel free to follow us for tips and tricks at basically any social platform at Stack Influence.
Yep.
And don't hesitate to reach out to me personally. Go connect with me on LinkedIn at William Gasner.
Okay, lovely. I'll make sure I update the show notes with kind of all the contact information, all your social channels. We have a really good blog. Actually, I just grabbed your RSS feed a second ago. And so I'm going to start, with your permission, I'm going to start syndicating some of your content. You still get full attribution for it, but it's nice to kind of spread the wealth around. Like I have about maybe 100 or so other partners that I have their RSS feeds, and it helps just cast a wider net for discovery. I think you have some great concepts and a great platform, and I want to make sure that we get the message out that the opportunity is there. You're very unique in the marketplace, and just thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Steve.
All right. Take care.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.